Today I'm here with Patrick Collins to talk about sales and how to go from 0 to 10K in 3 months. So Patrick, welcome.
I think it's a very early morning because I'm 2 hours ahead of you. So this is 8 a.m. Pitching for me. But I think most startups have to be ready to present or pitch at any single time. So I think I'm well used to this, but it's definitely good morning.
Patrick is a new guy in the town and doing amazing stuff with helping startups to grow their sales.
My past 10 years, I've been a sales coach, a sales consultant, and I've always been in awe of how hard the startups are working, how they're scaling. And it's very easy for an external coach to come in and say, you should do this and you should do that, and then just walk away and go back to your own life. Whereas the startup gets all this information and thinks, what do I actually do? What do I do next? And most importantly, how do I put it all together? What I want to do today is to show you sort of step by step basically the approach. And I think it's a very B2B approach, but I know there's a lot of B2C startups that can take the same approach. And the reason being that whoever your audience are, those first 100 people that are going to use your product need to be treated manually, individually, and way more over a scalable mindset from, say, 100 to 1,000. I think kind of maybe the best thing is if I share my screen and get started, unless you've got a few other questions to get going.
No, floor is yours. Take us away. What are the steps how to grow your sales from 0 to 10K?
I think what I want to cover is sort of 3 areas. You have acquisition, basically how you're going to find your target audience. And then you have conversion. How are you going to get that target audience to actually want to work with you, buy your product? And then retention, how are you going to keep them? So as you see, there's a lot of tabs on the top of my screen. And generally, this is not my style. I'm a one-tab sort of OCD tidy character. So this is out my comfort zone. I have lots of tabs, but it makes sense what I want to show you today. So basically, step 1 is goal setting. I think what a lot of people don't realize is they talk about monthly revenue. And when you're in a startup world, you need to think big, enormously big. And people will talk about total addressable market, 3 billion, and I want 1% of that. And you do have to have part of your brain to say, in the next 8 to 9 years, we could maybe get to there. But you've also got to have the part of your brain to say, well, what am I going to get to next Friday? And it's a really different side of your brain. So what I try and do, and I say this is a big weakness of startups, is just to say, do you know your goals for accountability for monthly, weekly, and even daily? So I usually do this exercise with people and I just say, where do you want to get to next 12 months? And if they say 10K, 20K, 50K, whatever it is, I then say to them, what's the average value of the paying customers? So say maybe 100. And then how many paying customers do you need in the next 12 months to try and figure that out? And then I just ask them to try and figure out the steps of the sales pipeline. And even with B2C, somebody asked me this and said, do I need a sales CRM for B2C? And I said, your first 100 or your first 50, yes, get to know them all individually, move them through the stages until you scale. But definitely for B2B, as you scale, you need this sort of sales pipe. And the sales pipeline is the different stages people go through. You can massively overcomplicate this if you want to, but the basic criteria is, are they interested? Are you speaking to them about a call? Have you got a call in the diary? Are they thinking about your product? Are they paying for your product? And different variables of that. But if you can try and do this exercise and you can try and think, well, this is my pipeline, then try and reverse engineer it and think, well, what percentage of people will convert from different stages? Now, they might be very high, but other startups might say 50% from trial to paying or 50% from demo to pending decision. But if you use this formula, and I could share the spreadsheet sort of later on, you can work back to say, well, yearly, if I need to get this many sort of leads and demos, this is what my monthly goals are. And then you look at these numbers and you just say, is this achievable? Now, there's one variable that you're not thinking about here, and it's churn, because you just don't know what's going to happen yet. And so you could try and make this a bit more complicated to say 10% of our customers will churn every couple of months or something. But I try and keep it really, really simple, because one of the hardest things that a lot of startups get is just too much information too soon. And so I try and say, if these are your targets, set it for the next 3 months. And within a couple of weeks, you're going to know if this is on track or not. But the main thing is to say, is this realistic? And the main things you're looking for is 20 leads a month. Can I do that? And I think as a startup, your mindset should be, can I find a marketing channel that can bring in about 10 leads per month? And then when you scale, can that bring in 10 leads per week? And then when you really scale, can that bring in 10 leads per day? So the equivalent is SEO. or LinkedIn lead generation or cold calling. But at the very start, you're trying to think about, can I find maybe 3 or 4 channels that could bring in about 10 leads per month? So to get 20 leads a month, no problem. Can you do 16 demos? Well, if a demo lasts about, 30 minutes and you're doing 3 a day, definitely you can do 16 a month. So that's achievable. Could you manage 10 trials? If 10 people were on your platform per month, could you interact with them? Could you support them? Great. And then finally, paying customers. Do you think you could convert that many to paying? And you might say, well, actually, no, I can only convert 5. And if that's the case, you need to build out all of these numbers. But generally, what I'm trying to do is get people to say, are you thinking about not just total addressable market and the 10 billion audience, not the monthly revenue at the end of the year and a quarter or what you need for investment, but actually the end of this month, the end of this week, and today, what activity are you trying to do? And I always try and get people in the mindset of daily accountability. So when you look at these numbers, you'll start to say, okay, if we look at this for April, I need to find 20 leads in April to try and get 8 paying customers. And a lot of the things about this is sales is about attrition. It's about constantly pushing and pushing. So most of your numbers in March are going to impact April, May, and June, but they're not going to close 8 paying customers in March. A lot of this is building up the momentum for the rest of the months. So first step I say is very quickly set your goals. Make sure they're realistic, double check them, and try and say, is this achievable? Now, most startups won't look as linear as this. You want to scale. So a lot of times you'll say 8, 10, 15, 20, and you'll see a point about here after 3 or 4 months where you're too stretched for demos or you're too stretched for leads. And then that's where you need to invest in more staff in marketing or more staff in sales or more staff in support. But you can start to plan this out to say, well, where are we going? And any startup that's in a position of scale, the most impressive thing I can see is you've got a plan. Now, you don't exactly know how that plan's going to go, but the plan is not just revenue. The plan is how you're going to get to leads, demos, trials, and paying customers. You'd be amazed at how many people I do this with, and their numbers they'll say are things like, I need 600 leads a month, or I'm going to do 400 demos this month. Like numbers that people are just not in the right mindset. So big for investment, think minute for daily activity, and then they start to meet up. Okay, so once you've got this, you need to be thinking of how you're going to do the sales admin. How are you going to do that? If I said to you today, I have somebody who wants to try your platform, where would you add it? And I always recommend HubSpot CRM. So I know in the Baltics, Pipedrive is very popular. There's Salesforce, there's HubSpot, there's Teamgate. I would say there's, hundreds and hundreds of sales CRMs. The reason I like HubSpot is a few simple ones. I find it very easy to use, as in the layout I like. Number 2, the support is very, very good. So on HubSpot, they have something called HubSpot Academy. And so if you're new to sales and marketing or you're training a team, the first thing I would say is direct them to this. Direct them to everything about marketing, about sales, about customer service, about all the different things, so that you've got a platform that you're developing your team instead of you personally having to teach them everything. The other thing is they have a really good startup package. So in terms of what they do, for about $90 a month or $50 or $40, you get a range of services, both for sales, support, marketing, that sort of thing. So I'm pretty agnostic a lot of the times in terms of what tools you use, but most of the time when I'm pushing startups, I just say, if you use HubSpot, particularly with my own skill set, I know how this can plug into all sorts of different things. But either way, whatever your sales CRM is, you need to be mapping out the stages. And this is your sales pipeline. You need to know that from left to right, you're building this funnel. And the funnel is lots going in at the top, getting to demos, getting to trials, and getting to paying customers. And try and track as much data as you can. So adding to a sales CRM is boring. It's admin. People don't like it. But 3 months down the line or 6 months, if you can filter by countries people are from, job titles that sign up, job titles that don't sign up, the average value of people who do sign up, the average value of people who don't sign up, the source of leads, where are the most people coming from? What's the average sales cycle? What's the cost of acquisition of people coming in? There's so much you can learn from the data. So I was in a talk, I think it was 2 weeks ago, with a really good sales coach. And one of the things he said that was completely new to me, but made a lot of sense, was simply when you're hiring salespeople or even marketing people, they need to have an engineering mindset. They need to have a mindset that's thinking, how do I build formulas? How do I scale numbers? So you're manually building a lot of things, but your mindset is, how do I find a formula to scale this up? So within a sales CRM, it's a starting point to say, let's start building up data. And from day one, if you get a single person who shows interest, get them in the sales CRM as lead, because now you've got somebody who's accountable. Final thing about a sales CRM, it will predict sort of when the tasks are and when things are due. And so my rule for every startup I work with is that everything has a task for every stage. And the task and lead is chase up to book a demo. In pending demo, chase up to confirm. In demo, follow up after demo. Pending decision, chase up to make sure if they want to work with you. In trial, chase up to make sure they're happy with the trial. In customer, chase up to make sure they're happy and can refer anybody else. Basically, there's a task against everybody. So if you start to scale up the numbers, but you're not adding tasks of when to do it, you're just simply not following up. And most sales come between about 6 to 8 points of activity. So one email, an email back, maybe a call back, proposal. There's 6 to 8 different points of contact. So if you forget to chase these people up, simply about 50 to 60% of your sales won't happen. So make sure you're following up. So you have your sales CRM in place. Then this is the tool you need to use here. And by the way, for all of these softwares I'm going to show you, a lot of the things you can do manually, but I prefer a software to scale up. But also you can get it very cheap or free. So HubSpot CRM you can use for free. Databox you can use for free. LinkedIn you can use for free. So there are a lot of different things I'm going to show you that are free. But in total, I would say to do all of this is about $300 a month. So we're not talking thousands, but it is a budget. But there are ways to do things for free and things to do for paid. Okay. So Databox, what I love about this is it aggregates all of your data into one place. And the easiest thing to do is just show you. So what I do for Databox is I use Data Manager and I bring in everything. So anything that I can track data goes into here. So examples are HubSpot CRM, MailChimp newsletter, my Facebook group, Intercom for support, my accounting, Stripe for payments, Google Analytics, basically anything that's happening with my business, I push into here. And then I set goals. And as you can see here, you can set goals for new leads. So if you think about new leads, trying to say, how many leads do I want to set up? And you'll say 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever it may be. So if you think about going back to the spreadsheet here, we're saying leads, 22 a month, but you might scale that up. So in here, this is where you add the leads on a monthly basis. And then what will happen is it'll show you, okay, where are you today? So if you look on this report here, I would say I'm slightly below. I'm about 20% below where I need to be. In terms of calls, we're a little bit below as well. However, in terms of subscriptions, we're above. And the most thing we're looking for is keeping on track of that. So one thing though, looking at this is you can say, okay, we need to push a little bit because we haven't got enough leads in. And it's not a case of sales now, but if we don't have enough leads here in a month or 2 months' time, it's going to affect this number. So Databox helps me to have daily accountability to say, are we on track? And it's a game to say, keep everything green. And then the most important one here is monthly revenue. So up to about 9,300 and the plan was about 8,000 by this time. So you can see where it becomes a game. And then you have data boards, and it depends how you want to see things. But the data board to me is something I'm totally obsessed with on my dashboard, on my sort of TV monitor. I have it on my phone. I basically wake up, refresh Databox and check the numbers. Now, you may say that's a bit obsessive, but in this first push to get to these numbers, what you need to do is find that way to just keep pushing and enjoy it. See the progress as like an adrenaline rush to keep going. It can be really good. I know a lot of people have asked me to set this up for them, for their investors, just to say, can you show people real-time results? Or if you're on an accelerator program, can the managers see how you're performing? But basically, this shows how am I doing in lead generation, in subscriptions and demos, how am I converting? And conversion is a lead going in to a customer. So I'm happy about that. How are subscriptions growing? And on average, it's about 20% a month. So it's on 9% halfway through the month. So I'll get to about 20% monthly revenue, active subscriptions. So you can set up all sorts of different things. And I do it for a range of areas, customer support, my community, Google Analytics, sometimes accounting, a range of things. But Databox is free up to 3 iterations. So if you sync HubSpot CRM, you could sync, Stripe, and you can maybe do Google Analytics and track a lot of your business from here. But the important one is this one here, daily accountability. Final thing on Databox, I know a lot of people do a sort of a scorecard, and a scorecard can be a way that you can set up whatever sort of things. This is an example one here. So you could get a Slack alert every Friday or an email once a day or whatever it is as an overview to say what's happening. And I know some sales teams do this per sales manager, other teams do it as overall. But you could say, how many leads did we get this week? How many demos did we do? How many sales did we do? How many trials have we got? And how is that compared to last week? And can we keep pushing the momentum? So my whole point of all of this of Databox is, can you turn the lead generation, the sales, into a bit of a game? That can you beat the results every week? Can you stay above the line, which is this one here? And this is where I get frustrated when people are thinking too big, but they're not thinking about today. And if you go too many days with falling behind, it gets unachievable. And suddenly those really sexy growth goals are just a pipe dream. So what you're trying to do is say, every day I want to stay on track. So what I try and train teams is, if this was somebody I was training, I would say, you're not sleeping tonight until you find a lead. Go and find a way. Get on LinkedIn, use your network, chase up old people. But we need to find a way that you can do this. When I say chase up old people, I mean old network, not literally old, but chase up old people you've been working with. But the point is, try and find a way that every day you're filling that pipeline that will fill the demos, that will fill the subscriptions. This mentality is when you first get going. As you scale, you don't need to hustle as hard because you have that more inbound leads, things coming in from SEO, from referrals, and I'm going to show you a bit of that as well. Okay, once you've got this all set up, I then look at this software here called Conversion.ai. There's quite a few tools out there. There's one called Copy.ai and a few other ones. But basically, AI is getting way, way better at writing for you. I'm very suspicious of bots in terms of content because they sound like bots. However, Conversion.ai is something that I really, really like. And the context of this is guys at Video CV that I work with, the Wise guys, and that are, I think, on the call today, just going to the LinkedIn page and just copying what do they do. And then on Conversion.ai, what you can do is type in company name, product description, tone of voice, and then just simply click generate content. And what will happen is it'll help you give a bit of a framework of how you explain how to get somebody's attention, how to find their desire of what they really need, and then action of how to support them. So attention, you could say hiring is hard. So you could have on your website, a LinkedIn post, whatever. Video CV's modern recruitment platform transforms the way you hire and presents your company to candidates. We make it easy for you to find, engage, and recruit top talent with a personalized experience that stands out from the crowd. All of this is auto-generated. That's all that I've put in. You can use our platform to create a customized profile page, upload videos, lots of different things. So the point of all of this is that a lot of startups have a great idea, but the way they explain it, the way they talk about it, the way they pitch about it, the way they put on the site doesn't either make sense or it's not that engaging. So what you can do with all of this is things like product description, blog post ideas, website headlines. What else do you do? Marketing angles of how to do it, how to push it, email subject lines. But all of this is based on to make use really quick. So anybody on the bootcamp for the past couple of days, if you've got an idea, put your idea in, put the business name in, and just see what it comes up with. And you might find that AI is basically scraping or looking for all different variables of what could work for your business. And it starts to present your company in a much clearer way that people can understand. So it's very fun to do, but also saves you a lot of time trying to figure out how do we get people's attention. And using things like this one or this one will make it a lot easier for you to just find a way to clearly explain what we're doing. If you already have that, then you don't need the software. But most companies I find have a better idea than a better way of explaining it. Okay. Next thing, website. I'll not go into this too much detail because a lot of you out there will already know how to design a site. However, the frustration I see is when I speak to a startup who has a terrible website and they say, we're waiting for our developers to get back to us, or we're working with an agency that said it'll be 6 weeks, or we're spending 10K on a site and it's going to take a while. The point in all of this is your first site only needs to be functional. It needs to be up there to build a bit of trust, to be able to get some demos booked in, to get going. It doesn't need to be your end website. It's going to change so much. Your brand might change, the opportunities might change, the images, the text, all sorts. So go cheap and go very, very quick. So I use this tool called Landon to build my site. And I'll show you how quick it is. So you say, let's go full site, SaaS site, and let's see how it looks. And load up. Yep, looks cool. I would like to have, I think, illustrations. So I'm going to use that there, and we'll use this sort of design. Cool. Click next. Font and bold. Okay. Next. I'd like to have features. I'd like to show my team. I'd like to capture emails, and I'd like to have some FAQs. Create. And there you go. You have a site. And then if you preview it, that's your site here. And you start to edit it. You start to get it going. You start to add different things. And there we go. So that took me, I think, 10 seconds. So my point is, if you're frustrated that you can't create a website, or your designers are taking too long, or whatever it is, get going with it. And I think my website that I built here is on the same thing. So I did a bit more time training. I tried to get going. But this is one of my first websites. It doesn't need to be awesome, and I'm sure I'll use an agency in the future to make something a bit better. But it's totally functional to get to that first 10K, which I'm trying to talk about. So don't overcomplicate it, the point of having a landing page or having a site of where you can create. And again, we're going to start to merge these softwares. So Conversion AI, we would probably say, can we make a website headline? So can we create something here that we can then put into the site and start to design it? Can we use different images, different text, that sort of thing? So don't want to go too much into detail of what to put on the site. But one thing I would like from every site in terms of B2B is an option to book a demo. And the reason being that if you think about your first customers, they've never heard about you. They're not too sure what you do. You probably can't explain too well on a site what you're doing. You probably have no customers, no case studies, no social proof or trust. So the only thing that you do have going for you is how well you can explain your passion. And that's really hard on a landing page. So every sort of website, I would want to have this button here, book a demo. And it simply makes sense that people can get in touch with you, have a call, and they buy into your voice, your passion, your vision. And remember, you're very early. If some of you are probably hours early if you're creating something new, if not, you're months or years early. So people, your vision, your passion, your emotion, your trust, all these sorts of things on top of obviously what you're doing to solve their problems. So think about your website as something you can go very quickly, and within a couple of clicks, you've got a website here which looks like half of the fancy startup websites you see out there. So no need to panic on creating a site. And that tool is called UMSO, UMSO. And they're a startup in themselves, been going for about, a year and a half, really good customer support, very friendly and very open and flexible to help you out. Okay, next one. If you think of where we're at the moment, you've got your goals, you've got a sales CRM, you've got a landing page. What do you do next? So let's start to think about how you build this community. So if you have a new idea, that means you can get a community of people interested in your idea. This doesn't mean they have to buy a product from you, but your idea could last 6 months before you even say, we've got a product that we want to share. But building a community should come from day one. So anybody on the hackathon this week, if you've created a new idea, create a Facebook group and create a newsletter straight away. And I'll show you why. So MailChimp, I really like it can be free up to a certain amount of subscribers, and you can create this newsletter function, automated emails or monthly newsletters. Don't worry about what you're going to say yet, but just set up MailChimp so people can subscribe and you can store it somewhere. And you can store it legally GDPR compliant. So people can click, do they want to opt in? Do they want to subscribe? These sorts of things. So I would say create a MailChimp account for email newsletters. And then this is where it syncs to a Facebook group. I want to go into a bit more detail about this. So I'm a big fan of B2B sales. I love lead generation. I hate social media. You'll not find me on Instagram or WhatsApp. You'll not find me on TikTok, even, Clubhouse and different things that are coming. I don't really like social media too much because I find it hugely distracting. And it's for me as a salesperson, I'm very focused. Let's hit the targets. Let's go for what we want to do. So I'm not always a huge fan of channels or platforms that are massively distracting. However, I think Facebook groups are incredible for building a community. So a lot of people will say, well, why do I need a community, first of all? And the main thing is, even if you don't have a product, or if your product is at early stages, you still have a voice and an education. So all of you will say, I want to build this because I've experienced this pain point, or I've worked in an industry where there is this pain point, and I want to try and help people. And that's your community. Then if you get your product, then that's your product and your startup, you're scaling. But the community can come way before you even have a product. And the community factor of all of this is trying to build up on Facebook. And the reason why is this option here, membership questions. So if you have a Slack channel, a LinkedIn group, WhatsApp group, all sorts of different things, yes, you can get people to join, but you can't validate them like you can with this. So by validating them, you'll have things like, how did you hear about this group? So what I want to say is, are people joining just because I invite them, or people joining because of organic? They find them on Facebook, people refer, that sort of thing. The next question, what do you need help with? So my background is I've got a LinkedIn lead generation tool. So I'm wanting to know, do they need help with lead generation? Saying, how can I really help them? And the final one, and most important one to me, is what is your email? And the reason this is so important is I can grow a Facebook group, which is like a B2C audience, but I can get their email address and automate emails to them, which is now a one B2B audience. So I can still use B2C channels, but I can try and do it in a sort of turn it into a B2B manner, which I'm more comfortable with. So whenever I get people requesting, you'll see a very quick example here, and people will say that I was part of the day, want to know how to build a community, here's my email. Some people answer, some people don't. The main thing to bear in mind is if I click approve on normal Facebook, it'll just wipe this data. So Facebook are very good at using questions to validate, but they don't use it for retention. So Facebook simply say, use questions to validate if you want that people to join or not. But I want to go a step further. I want to use this information now to do automation. And I use this tool here called Group Leads. So groupleads.net is not very popular, as in I love it, but I don't know anybody that really uses it. And the idea behind this is it sits on top of Facebook, and it syncs your Facebook group to something like a newsletter or a spreadsheet or whatever marketing tool you're using. So if you imagine the idea, you build a community of people on Facebook, and every day you start to get people joining. You click approve all, and this tool here, Group Leads, will automatically push it to MailChimp. And then MailChimp could either send an email to say, thanks for joining the group, this is what I do, this is what I'm building, or you can join them to a newsletter, and once a month you can update people. But it's really important that in my Facebook group, I've got maybe, I don't know, nearly 2,000 people have joined the group, but I've also got nearly 1,500 email addresses from it. So the point of this is don't just do a group for the sake of community. Community is very, very important. But at the same time, you're trying to build a group for capturing emails where you can push to one-on-one conversations. So this is turning a B2C channel in terms of Facebook into a B2B approach, which is one-on-one. The other thing, though, is when you label your group, try and call it something that is keyword friendly. So I don't call the group Prospect Labs or Patrick Collins Training because nobody really knows what they are. So I call the group Growth Hacking for Startups. So all of you are in this position looking for scaling your startup, growth hacking, lead generation, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times my group will come up and then it says provided by Patrick Collins. So all of you should say recruitment group provided by Video CV, but the group shouldn't be called Video CV, for example. So trying to create a community of like-minded people who can chat. You can moderate posting, you can moderate who's joining, you can respond to questions, but it's your community that you can interact with. They learn about your voice, but most importantly, you can then get their email address to then push them towards newsletters and targeting them. So the reason I like to push this first is this grows organically without a lot of work. So how to get people to your Facebook group is a few things. One, you can add a link to your email signature. So when you start emailing people, have the bottom, join our Facebook group. That's one thing I do. Two, whenever you start speaking to people, say, by the way, I've got this group, would love to invite you to. So if you're doing a pitch, you're speaking to a customer, whatever it is, just start introducing. Third is it's a really good sales objection. So if you imagine every time somebody will say to you, thanks for getting in touch, I'm not quite ready to use your product, or I don't really want to try it yet. My response in the early stage was no problem. We've got a group that you might find really helpful. Why don't you join there? And I'm basically saying you might not want to buy from me now, but join my community and I'm going to agree you that my brand, my education is going to be what you need to pay for. So it's a really good sort of out that if you're not sure how to take the conversation on, just lead somebody to the group. There are other ways that you can do in a second. I'm going to show you with LinkedIn and email automation, but basically post in that group and get going. In terms of content, very easy to maintain. Once per week, post something. If you're early stage, post updates, post questions, post polls, and then once per week, go into members and just invite and thank people for joining. When you click on members, there's an option where you can click on thanking people. So it says, write welcome post. One person this week joined. So great, I'll say thanks. So thank people for joining the group, ask them to introduce yourself, that sort of thing. So when I approve these 15 people, I'll write to them and say, thanks for joining the group. What do you do? What are you working on? And that will just sort of light a conversation. But the main thing for a community is people don't message me and say, you haven't posted for a week, what's wrong? It's a community, you just go with it. Whereas if you have a blog and you commit from day one, I'm going to write a blog, if you only have one post, it looks a bit sort of amateur. If you have an Instagram channel and you've got 20 people on it or Twitter followers, it looks a bit amateur and it sort of loses trust instead of builds trust. So that's why I would say in early stage, have your website, don't have all the social media channels. You might buy the domains and the Twitter and Instagram handles, but you don't need to push them. And just have a Facebook group. And then people on your site can click, go to your Facebook group, you can direct them to them, and just focus on that. Okay, so if you think of the structure, we've got goals, we're analyzing daily, we have a website, we have a newsletter, we have a community growing. Next thing before we move into actually sort of scaling lead generation is payments. So I can't tell you how many times I'm amazed where people are saying, I say to them, what's your product? And we say a B2B SaaS. How much do you charge? $50 per month. How are you invoicing or how are you charging? We send manually. And I just think, what's going on? So you need to find a payments. And a lot of people will feel like you don't want to ask the question, because if you ask your customers set up automated, they might say, I don't want to give my card details. But the truth is, most softwares, this is just the way it is. You get automated payments. So I would say Stripe are my personal favorite. I would say the best on the market, and they do really good offers for startups. So I know with some programs I work with, they give the first 50,000 euros of charges commission free. So you can get going with Stripe, really good support, and automate payments. One thing though is a few customers struggle with, or startups struggle with, and that's simply integrating Stripe with the whole flow of how people sign up. What I did is I sort of bypassed that, and I use this tool called So Pay Here integrates with Stripe, but it just lets you make a form, and I think I'll show you here, something like this. It just lets you make a landing page where you can send to people, and then you can choose the package and click subscribe. So they're not directly going and signing up within your website, they're linking to a landing page. But that landing page is then setting up an automated Stripe subscription. So it just means that if you're struggling on building that sort of integration with Stripe and your website and the whole flow, just cut it out. Sign up to Stripe and have it linked to your bank account and add the products. And then on your Pay Here, create a landing page where it will say monthly subscription, yearly subscription, coupon codes, whatever you want to do, these sorts of things. So I found that using Pay Here was my go-to way to say, I want to charge using Stripe straight away. I want to give some voucher codes and free accounts to start with, but I also want people going into automated payments constantly. So if you're early stage thinking we want to get going, what's really exciting is you can see we've got recurring payments, not just one-off invoices or that sort of thing. So I don't want to waste any time chasing a payment. If somebody's my customer, I just presume they're paying on time because the payments are set up. So have a look at Stripe as your payment provider of charging, but look at Pay Here that sits on top and just lets you charge automatically straight away by a very easy landing page. It's a bit like creating a MailChimp landing page or whatever. Even when I showed you my Umzo, the website, very easy to create a page. Same with Pay Here. So if you can do this, then it means you can have a website built, you can have a community growing, but you can take payments from day one, and that's huge. Okay. So if we think of the transition where we are, the structure looks really good, and this might look very complicated, but basically the general thing is, do you know who you're going to target? Do you know what you're going to use for sales admin to keep in touch with people? Do you know what your website's going to be? Do you know how you're going to build a sort of a community? And do you know how you're going to charge people? If you just did those things alone, you would make traction because people would start to hear about you, you do some pitching, people go to your site, you do some demos. But I now want to show you the next side to really go hardcore in terms of how to scale your sales. We've got about 20 minutes, so we'll fit it all in. One quick thing here is Calendly. There's an argument a lot about salespeople to say, don't use Calendly links to book demos because sometimes it puts people off, sometimes people like it. I'm sort of in the middle, I'm not so sure. What I do like about Calendly though is trying to validate before I speak to somebody. So if anybody goes on my website here and clicks book a demo, they'll go to this page here, which is Regilla, my colleague. And if anybody clicks, and let's see here, you'll then see these questions. What's your LinkedIn profile? So I want to know if you're going to do LinkedIn lead generation, what's your profile? Next thing, what's your website? And the next thing, please share anything that'll help prepare for our meeting. So there's a few reasons for that. One of them is I'm trying to validate. If they don't answer the questions, I don't speak to them. Because if you don't have the courtesy of just answer these, you're not that engaged. You're probably going to be hard work. Maybe a bit arrogant, maybe a bit lazy, whatever, but not my type of customer. The other thing is I want to know more about your business. So when I do a demo, it's not about my product. My demo is educating the user on LinkedIn, on why to use tools, why we can help them. But I really want to help them of why their business can benefit, not just why we can benefit of them being a customer. So trying to ask validated questions here means that every demo we do is a lot more useful and you get a lot more information. So don't be scared of asking a few questions just to get to know somebody a bit better. Okay, so let's transition into the lead generation. And I would say by far the biggest hack that I want to teach you is this one here. It depends, not relevant for everybody, but if you've got a large network on LinkedIn and you've got a lot of connections, I would definitely push you to do this when launching your product or trying to build an audience. So step one is go to your connections and filter by first degree connections on LinkedIn. And then click filter by maybe founder if you want to really focus in on your target audience. And mine is startups. And what you can see is there's 7,000 people here in my audience, in my network that are startups. So then I'll show you this tool here called Phantom Buster. Now, Phantom Buster in itself, I would say everybody that's listening, look into this. I would say it's the number one tool, or the two tools that I would recommend out of everything I show you today. Databox, I would say, is number one. Use that to track all your sales and goals. But Phantom Buster is the tool that's going to help you scale. It's going to help you with all the automated tools. So what I do with Phantom Buster is I go to LinkedIn and I choose this one called Search. It's LinkedIn Search Export. And basically this will export all the people, well, not all, but the first 1,000 people to start with from my LinkedIn search. So what I'm trying to do is get all of these people onto a spreadsheet. And if I can get them all onto a spreadsheet using Phantom Buster, I can then tidy them up and try and see, are these my current customers? Are these friends? Are these family? Are these competitors? Try and basically delete a lot of the people that are not relevant. And then once I've exported them and all ready, I'll then do this. On LinkedIn, option on the bottom left, to click events. And if you click event, you can then create a LinkedIn event. And on the event, you can style it, do all the different things. And you can use this option here called use a LinkedIn registration form. And basically what this means is that when somebody subscribes to an event, they have to give their email address as well. So if you create an event like this, it means that you can now have a public event where you can do an introduction to your business, a demo, lots of different things that are going on. Now, one of the problems are people host events and then think that's it, people are going to turn up. I'm not quite like that. I look at everything like lead generation. How can we automate something to really, really scale it up? And the other thing is, if I do an event, I want a lot of people there to feel this sort of fear of missing out or to feel this brand. If I can have hundreds of people on an event listen to me, they must feel like I know something and they're more likely to work with me. So I then go back to Phantom Buster once I've created an event, and I use this one here called Event Inviter. This one here. And what this will do is that spreadsheet that you've downloaded, those 1,000 people, it'll start to invite them all to the event. And you can set 50 or 100 a day. And what I really like about this is it's not a connection and it's not a LinkedIn message. It's a LinkedIn event invitation. So it'll show for everybody here in their network is Patrick Collins has invited you to the event. And this is how it looks. So this is my event that I'm launching the end of March. And we have 813 people attending so far. And this is halfway through. So I think there'll be over 1,000 people attending this event. And this blows my mind. Like when I first launched this, I was hoping 20 or 30 people. And my mindset was basically, if I get more than one person, it's more efficient than a demo because I'm speaking to two people at the time. And then that was my growth goals for this. So if I get 1,000 people on a 90-minute call that are all looking to learn about how to generate leads on LinkedIn, two things are going to happen. One, my brand is going to be bigger. They're going to learn more about who is Patrick Collins, who is Labs. Number two, they're going to all get a lot more educated. And the reason this training is, most importantly, can I help people? There's a lot of early stage businesses affected by COVID, different things. Learning these skills can put you in a bit more control to make sales. But number three, a lot of these might go on and sign up to my platform. So if I get one customer from this, awesome. I could get 50, 100, 200. I have no idea what the conversion rate will be. However, all of them have submitted, signed up, and have given their email address. So not only if I've got 813 people that are attending and going to be on the call, I've also got 813 email addresses. Now, not all of those I can use to target, because when they subscribe, you have to say, can Patrick or can Prosper Labs keep in touch with you? And some say yes, some say no. But there's still, I would say, maybe 50 or 60% who've said, yes, keep in touch via email. So a bit like this mentality from Facebook, can you turn a group or a bunch of people, channeling them into something that's just about you, into a one-to-one relationship? And this is what I'm doing here. Now, the problem I have is my wife yesterday said, so how are you going to host the video? And I said, I've got no idea. Like Zoom, Meet, Google Hangouts, I need to figure that out. But that's part of a lucky problem, that if I'm hosting the demo end of March for 1,000 people, I'm really excited about that. So trying to go back to this exercise is going to be amazing for all of you. And let me reiterate this again. So step one is you filter your network by your first degree connections, all the people that are already in your network. And then step two, on Phantom Buster, you use the one called Search Export. And this exports all of that view. Step three, you create an event on LinkedIn here, and it can be a LinkedIn event about introduction to your product, the pain points, that sort of thing. Just try and make it educational. And then step four, once you've created the event, you have the Phantom Buster called Event Inviter. And it's this one here. And using that automation would mean that from maybe a month from now, you could have 1,000 people on a demo listening about your product. Now, if you don't get your first 20, 30 demos from that, I would be amazed. So that's one hack that I would say focus on that first, because it's going to be amazing. The caveat to this, though, is you need to be comfortable, like I am today, doing a presentation. You need to be full of energy. You need to have ideas. You need to offer something new that people aren't doing. But the reason you're building your product in the first place is probably because you're doing something different anyway. So get used to pitching, get used to practicing. And I don't care if this event is amazing or not. What does it matter? I'm going to give it a go. If I can help people, if I can get some customers, but I'm going to be learning and just committing to do once a month. Okay, final few bits I want to show you in this sort of whole approach. You have the sales setup, you have the website, you have the creating event. Then it's a bit more of the automation. So what I would say is another hack that I like to show a lot of people is if you Google LinkedIn Learners, and you'll find this platform here called LinkedIn Learning. Now, this is not relevant to everybody, but for certain categories, this is amazing. So if you click on search here, and if you type in recruitment, for example, or let's think HR, actually, that's probably better. If you search for HR, what you can do is see all of the courses that people are studying. So courses here. And you can see there's 117 courses on HR. And if we filter by advanced, let's see what there is. Employee engagement, there we go. So if you think about if your software that's to do with helping customers retain their best talent, engage their audience, support their staff, that sort of thing, you can go to the top right here and click here. And there's 11,000 people that like this. So this means that there's 11,000 people who are actively on LinkedIn looking for a course on employee engagement and looking at it. And look at the people here, HR managers, office managers, HR coordinators, senior people, human resources. So if I had a startup that was in HR, I would be targeting this group. And what I love about this is that if you copy this URL, go back to Phantom Buster, and again, if you choose, I think it's learning, LinkedIn Learning Likers, you then scrape all of these people from here. So you scrape not 11,000, but I think it's the first 1,500 or 2,000. So you scrape all of these people from a course. You can also do this logic from events. So likewise, if you look at my event, if any of you clicked on here and attended, you could then scrape all the people here that are attended. And the same thing on Phantom Buster, instead of learning, you go to event, and there you go, LinkedIn event guest exporter. So if it's LinkedIn Learning courses, or it's LinkedIn events, or maybe LinkedIn groups, or even LinkedIn posts, you're trying to find an engaged audience that are online. And if you do it this way, instead of just targeting people that are founders of a company, you target them because you've got something in common. We both like this course, let's get to know each other. And so with this information, once I scrape all this event or from the LinkedIn Learning course, I then use my own software. So this is the Prosper Labs LinkedIn software. And what I do is I click on search and I import all of the people that I've just scraped into here. And then I run a campaign to message them. And the campaign is to connect with them and to automate it. So if I have a look at this one here, LinkedIn Learning, and these were all the people that I scraped that were studying a course on LinkedIn Learning called Creating a Sales Playbook. And my message was fairly simple. Hey, first name, founder Prosper Labs, head of growth with Wise Guys, saw that we're both interested in this course, great to share ideas. So the idea was we both have something in common, let's be friends. That was it. And then my follow-up was here. Thanks for connecting, hope you're well, a bit more about me, founder of this company, Would love to show you how to use personalization in your LinkedIn campaigns if this is something that could help you. So basically, I'm not saying, do you want a demo of my product? I'm saying, would love to using these things could help you. If they don't reply, 3 days later, I would send them towards a blog, but I would also send them towards my Facebook group to say, check it out. And then if they still don't reply, I then go for one last time to say, would love to show you how to use our software. Are you free for 30 minutes? And what I found from this is the stats. We get about, 55% were accepting and about 40% replying. So if you think about having a Facebook group running, and then you have a LinkedIn event with 1,000 people, and then you're automating to people who are studying online, you start to find, like here, you have inbox of 30, 40 people constantly replying and speaking to you. So each one of these softwares, I think I could speak on for hours and how to use them the right way. But what I'm trying to show you here that I wish I could have showed people or myself when I first got into startup 10 years ago is this is a software stack to say use a bit of all of these, do it really well, and don't overcomplicate it with too many things. In terms of my lead generation, I'm running my own events to publicly speak to people and attract email addresses. I have a Facebook group to attract email addresses, but I'm connecting with new people to get to know them and automate messaging them. And the final circle of all of this is any of these new people that I connect with but don't reply to me, I'll then target them to join my event next month. So if they connect with me, they're going to find out about me from an event or by speaking to me one-to-one via LinkedIn. Either way. Okay. Final things I want to show you is this tool here called Hike SEO. A lot of you will think of SEO is not relevant, or an agency needs to do it, or it's too long term and it won't get me business. And that was my mindset quite a while ago. So what I try and do is make sure that startups start to think about SEO right from the start. And the reason being is that if you're starting to analyze your competitors, you're not necessarily building your own product or landing pages, but you're looking at what other people are doing well to inspire you on how they're running their marketing, how they build a website, how much traffic they're getting, that sort of thing. So this tool here called Hike SEO, it does a couple of things that I really love. One of the first thing it does is it'll show me how my competitors are performing. So when I look at competition, I can choose any of the softwares that are similar to me, and I can see things like their traffic stats, when they're getting links from other audiences, what they're posting high for, that sort of thing. Then I can also, so this will analyze my website and say, this is what you need to work on this month on your website, and this is how long it takes. And this business model, I think, is genius. So their business model is software with a service, or SaaS. And I don't hear this too much. So basically they're SaaS, $50 a month subscription. However, they say, you need to do this. This is why it's important. This is how to do it. But if you don't want to do it, click order, and for $5, we'll do it for you. So basically they make an extra couple of $100 per customer simply by the with a service. So they were originally an SEO agency, now they're a software, but they still show sort of glimpses of their service business as well, which I think is fascinating. But in terms of a customer using this, I'm educated on how it's going and how I'm improving. And I would say I'm a real expert in some spaces, but on SEO, I'm not. But what I'm finding here is I'm now starting to rank highly in terms of some specific things. So if you search for LinkedIn Sales Navigator 2021, I'll be placed 2 below any of the paid ads. And the other ones I'm gradually trying to improve and work on. So using an SEO tool to learn about your competitors and to gradually have accountability to say once a month, whatever it is, I'm going to write a blog, optimize it and push it, means that slow and steady, you're going to start to get that inbound traffic as well. So I think there's a range of tools here, but the main things I would stress to all of you, number one, have a plan, accountability to see, and maybe review it either quarterly or even monthly. But your plan is, how many leads do I need? Because without that, nothing will happen. How many leads do I need? How many demos can I do? How many trials? How many paying customers? Set up data which will help you to track on a daily basis, how am I performing and when am I getting to? Create a website that looks good, something like Landon, very, very quickly. So you have your goals, you have your targets, you have a website, and then try and do 1 or 2 things that can build into too much work via automation. And my favorite one would either be a Facebook group where you can start to invite a lot of people to, or recently I've been testing more this one in terms of the LinkedIn event, and trying to find a way that you can get yourself in front of a lot of people instead of just one-to-one demos, which you're going to be doing a lot to as well. And then if you can try and put this all together, The final tip I would say to finish off is every call should lead to another call, or every meeting should lead to another meeting. So if you have a demo and you do a trial, if you do a demo and they really enjoy the demo, I would finish off with saying, really appreciate your time today. Why don't I send you a link to get signed up and we can have a call on Wednesday to do onboarding? The point is, I don't just say, thanks for your time, I'll send you some information and please get back to me. Be in control of the next step. So every call you have, if it's a demo, get them set up on a trial or onboarding. If they do an onboarding call, book in another one to get a review and make sure it's okay. If they sign up as a customer, get another call for 3 weeks to get feedback and some referrals or train the rest of the team. But this sort of mindset of always have a task or always have a follow-up, always have the next step will really help you in sales. Otherwise, you get into this sort of gray area where you have lots of people in your sales pipeline, but you don't quite know if they're going to work with you or not. So try and find a way regardless of where the leads come from, when you're on the phone, do your demo, do the information, and then say, can we have a call next week to review the proposal, to get you signed up? And if they say yes, great, they're going to sign up. If they say, I'm not so sure, then try and find out why. And then that's where you start to deal with the objections. So I think that's my sort of go-to plan. And I think if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. So my name's Patrick Collins. I'm sure the team will share email addresses. And I think if I have time, I'll be happy to do some one-to-ones with some of you just to give you feedback on your product or something like that. I think try and find me, please reach out to me. But I think what I've tried to show you today is this may seem very complicated, but it's building blocks. Goals, sales admin and targets, website and community, automated or some sort of outreach, and then finding a way to sort of speak to them. So it was a bit of an education at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I don't know how many people are awake and active, but I think that's sort of my approach to how I see everything.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Patrick, for this very smooth and, as you started it, with engineering mindset. Awesome. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you so much.
And great ideas and great insights.